Our first guest is Heidi Hollis. Heidi is a truth seeker of the unknown. She's the world's foremost expert on shadow people and the Hat Man phenomena, and actually gave them both their descriptive names in her book called The Secret War, a true story about a real alien war in shadow people, and her newest book, The Hat Man, the true story of evil encounters. Her other acclaimed books, Jesus is No Joke, a true story of an unlikely witness who saw Jesus, and Picture Prayers, span a variety of topics based on Jesus and angel encounters. She's also authored and drawn a new graphic novel series, Diary Blog of Fickle Finders, which spans topics from aliens to angels. Heidi is also a radio talk show host. Her show is called The Outlander. She's a lecturer and an occupational therapist. You can find her on the Inception Radio Network, of course, which we are part of, and we make it a point to catch Heidi's show anytime we can. So without any further delay, let's get her on the line. Heidi, good evening. Welcome to Fringe Radio.
Well, thanks a lot for rolling out the red carpet. This is awesome. How are you doing?
Well, that's what it's all about.
I appreciate it.
And now you live in Chicago, correct?
I am. Yes, I'm here.
As a 30-year Chicagoan, born and raised there myself, I have to put the red carpet out for you.
Oh, well, thank you. I had no idea you're a Chicago guy.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. South Sider.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yep.
Well, you lived to tell the story, huh?
I did. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Moved out here to Salt Lake City 20 years ago. It seems like yesterday. But no, it's Chicago's home, and it'll always be home. And we make it a point to get back every year and see Mom, who's 91 years old and still lives on the South Side.
Oh, nice. It's a fun city. People hear so much negativity about it, but it's fun. And the people are friendly. I mean, it truly is a nice city.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I know it is. It is. You know what's so interesting is. When I moved here to Salt Lake City 20 years ago, but I was commuting here longer than that, more than 20 years ago. And this town has just grown and grown and grown. But people here in Utah, when they think about, they think kind of the Salt Lake Valley, and Salt Lake City is so huge. The I-5 corridor, the western suburbs, are bigger than this whole valley here. They're like cities in themselves out in Oak Brook and, up in Schaumburg and wherever you may be.
Yeah.
And just how you can, back home, if you're hungry for food at 2 a.m, you can go get it. Here, well, you're kind of out of luck. So it's definitely.
I've yet to go to a nasty restaurant here in Chicago. Everything is awesome.
Yes. Yeah, that's the one thing I would say. The big difference between here and home for me is that the food is it's just spectacular. Anyway.
Yeah.
I gave a little bit of first of all, thank you so much for giving us time on your Saturday evening to be here with us. And I gave a little bit of your bio out, but why don't you, for our listeners that haven't heard about you or heard your interviewing before or know about you, why don't you give us a little bit of the backstory? How did you get into doing what you're doing and doing what you do today?
I was dropped on my head. I'm just kidding. It must be. It must be. I'll question my parents later, or my dad. But he won't confess. I don't know, but I'm pretty certain. But, I grew up in a haunted house. I think a lot of us that get into these odd topics, it first starts with personal experience. Some people have, just bumped into a topic they find interesting, but I was living in the midst of horror and terror and wanted to find some answers, though I was quite young and just, didn't know what to think about what I was experiencing. I was, a teenager when I came across some information that helped steer me in the direction of potentially part of my haunted house stuff was connected to aliens. And went from alien topic, trying to find answers for myself to I haven't been abducted, thank God. But they tried. I guess I could share a little bit on that.
There's a lot you got to cover tonight. A lot of stuff.
Yes, tons. And I mean, aliens to seeing UFOs to shooing out some aliens out of my apartment, only to be confronted by big hulking shadowy people, and then venturing on to having experienced angel encounters and Jesus encounters, and then the Hat Man. I mean, I think I am cursed, or I have, like, the top of my head blown off, and I'm seeing stuff for some reason, and I don't know why. I'm not a psychic. I'm nothing, or nobody special. I'm just somebody trying to get by in this life, and lo and behold, the world is dumping out everything at me, and I'm writing about it, trying to tell people.
Well, maybe, but you know what? Maybe in the big scheme of things, maybe that's what you were put here for.
You know, I think so. I really do, because it's like I try my best to, relate as humanly flawed as possible, because I think it's important just to be like, look, these things happen. We don't know why these things happen all the time, but, let's not ignore them and pretend that we're crazy and we can't trust our eyeballs, that we use to drive every day.
Right.
It's like sometime at some point you got to go, all right, I'm gonna pull out my bootstraps and get down to it, and I hope to serve as some kind of an example for regular everyday people who get tossed into this stuff and make sense of it, and don't freak out, just deal with it.
Well, it's interesting. Like you said, you grew up. Now, I would assume the haunted house you grew up in was in Chicago.
I'm from Milwaukee. I was raised mostly in Milwaukee. San Francisco born, but mostly raised in Milwaukee.
Okay.
Not too far.
But I mean, you're one of the few people that have kind of. It seems like you get a lot of people on the program over the years doing this, and a lot of people go, "Yeah, I grew up in a haunted house, and we knew it was haunted. It was great, and it was cool." And there's a handful of people that said, "Grew up in a haunted house. I was terrified. Couldn't wait to get out of there, and was always in fear for my life."
Yeah, I didn't like it. I mean, I was a kid. I don't know many kids that are like me, that keep terrorizing me, ghosts. No, I think, it was horrifying. It was terrifying. Myself and I had two sisters and a stepbrother who were enduring this, and we were not thrilled, tickled, or anything. And for us, we didn't have our parents to really to bounce ideas off from. I had a stepmother and my dad at the time. My mother had passed earlier that same year that the haunting started. So it was horrifying. And for myself and my siblings, what helped us was to watch horror movies. It was like counseling for us.
Heidi, we got to take a quick commercial break for our radio station listeners on Global 24. Our guest tonight, Heidi Hollis, I keep saying it backwards, is our guest. We're honored to have her here. Fringe Radio. We'll be back on the other side. Stick around. We have a lot to cover there. Everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Our guest tonight, the one and only Heidi Hollis. Heidi, again, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. You kidding me? I wouldn't miss this. This is
fun. I see you in chat, too, having fun here with the gang.
You didn't see that.
I can see it all.
I'm having fun.
Well, that's what it's all about. So before the break, you were telling us about living in this haunted house and you and your siblings dealing with this. Yeah,
it was horrible. I'll tell you, that first night that we realized something was not quite right, it was the first Christmas after my mother had passed. And my soon-to-be stepmother and my dad had left for the evening. It was Christmas Day, and they went to go wish others Merry Christmas. So myself, my two sisters, and my soon-to-be stepbrother were at the house. Mm-hmm. And we're playing with our freshly opened, gifts, and we're like, oh, cool, having fun with our new toys. And my soon-to-be stepmother had moved in her organ. And as we're playing with our toys, this thing started pounding away, playing. And, me and my two sisters are like, oh, that is so cool. Just like the old Western movies where, the automatic playing piano,
Right.
And we're going to our stepbrother like, that is so cool. How does it do that? We look at him with his little freckles, red-headed face. He goes, it doesn't do that. And we all, it was funny. It was like a moment out of a movie, and we all froze and screamed and ran. And of course, what is the most secure room in a house? The something that has a lock, and that was the bathroom.
Right.
And so we all piled in there, all four of us, and we're just paralyzed. We didn't know what to think. We're just like, did that really happen? Did that really happen? And I had kind of a bully of a sister. She knows who she is. There's only one. And she was like, we're in there for I don't know how long. And she's like, oh, it's hot in here. Somebody's got to get out. And she shoved me out. And mind you, this organ is still playing. And it's pounding away. And it's something like out of a horror movie. It's just, dun, 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 just pounding.
Right.
And I was like, I was scared. I was crying. And I had my back up against the bathroom door. And I'm like, oh, I got to do something about this. I just couldn't stand it. And this was the beginning of my facing big paranormal baddies. I went, and I knew there was a key for this thing. So I went into my dad's room. I got the key. And I reached over these keys that were playing, and I pulled the case that sealed over it and locked it and closed that case, and it stopped playing. I went to put the keys up, and I'm like, you can come out now, you chickens. I stopped it, and my siblings start coming out, and they're like, what did you do? And I'm like, I locked it. It's okay. Mm-hmm. And as they're standing there, still close to the bathroom door, another odd sound started playing, and they all screamed, ran back in, leaving me out there. And I'm like, what is this sound? And I go to look around to find out what it is, and here my little sister had gotten an electric guitar, and it was playing. So I picked it up, and I went to go take the batteries out of it, and it had no batteries.
Wow. So
I could not stop it, and I just, I was telling my siblings what I'm doing. I'm grabbing it. I'm going to take the batteries out. And when I realized that it didn't have any batteries, I just kind of dropped it and put my back to the bathroom door and just slumped down and just continued to cry until my parents came home and everything stopped.
Wow.
And they, of course, did not believe us. And, it was the beginning of the nightmare.
When the organ started doing its own thing, or when whatever was doing that was doing it, did you see anything? I mean, was there a sense of a creature there? Was there a sense of a presence there, or was the organ kind of call it if you want, possessed? It was doing its own thing.
It was such a strange thing. I was numb. I was so young, and I really wasn't thinking anything of it. In the sense of who's doing this, what's doing this. It was just sheer terror of, fix this now. Even when I reached over the keys to lock it, I didn't get a sense of anything. I was just, fix it now, because I couldn't stand the sound of it anymore. So
crazy.
It was just, it was really odd, and it was horrifying. In that house, we had odd bangings, odd knockings, something. This is a telltale sign of what it was, because things didn't end with that house for me. Obviously, I'm sitting here talking to you. Something at one point, my stepbrother and my older sister were home alone, and they were hearing loud pounding along the stairs, underneath the stairs that went up to the second floor. So there's no crawl space in between there. There's it's a staircase, for crying out loud, and behind it was the stairs that went to the basement. So they were freaked out. They ran up to the second floor somehow and locked themselves in the bathroom. And they were there for an extended amount of time when my stepbrother, trying to be all tough, I'm not going to sit in this bathroom anymore. This is crazy.
Right,
So he opened up the bathroom door, and he's like, come take me on if you're so bad or something, whatever. And something black flew in his face with red glowing eyes and scratched his face up.
Wow.
So, I believe perhaps shadow beings were already present in my life at that time and just continued their harassment for years to come.
Well, let's talk a little bit, if we can. This is probably a great time to transition into shadow beings and shadow people. You sent me a lot of different notes on that. What's your interpretation, Heidi? What do you think these things are? Do you think they're ghosts. I mean, I've never encountered anything like this, but I have talked to a few people that have, and they're legitimate people. They're not telling stories. It's not wishful thinking. They've seen things that have terrified them.
Oh my goodness. These shadow people, how can I put it? They are low down, dirty, rotten, good for nothing scoundrels, pits of the bottom of hell. I don't know. They're just they're horrible. They're horrible. Now, I've had a lot of people over the years, especially in the beginning, when I first started talking about shadow people, no one had never heard of such a thing. Even when I was trying to get my book published, I wrote it in 1997. And I was sending the book all over the place to people who were authors themselves of the paranormal, who had like a little publishing firm. They were putting stuff out. So my book was all over the place. The topic was leaking out from that. And when I was telling, and trying to relay in my book, The Secret War, that was the title still then, I was being told, well, that's science fiction. That's not real. There's no such thing as this. Go back and rewrite this, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, this thing is for real, and it's harassed me, and, I was determined to get it out there no matter what. 2 months to write the book, 4 years to get it published because of that kind of crap. So it was really difficult. And then, when I started talking about it, ghost hunters would get in touch with me and say, well, these are the shadows of ghosts. I'm like, oh, wait until you meet one, and then write me back. And luckily, some of them did write me back, and they're like, okay, that was no ghost. I'm like, exactly. It's something 10 times worse. When you're faced with these things, at first, I guess, to describe what they look like, they can come in various shapes and forms. Shadow beings can be like a shadow cloud. They can look like a shadowy bird almost. They can look like what I call a head and shoulders shadow, because it just looks like a big hulking thing with a head directly connected to its shoulders. They can look like how can I say, a streak, a cat,
right,
a rodent. And sometimes, if you're super unfortunate, you'll see their glowing red eyes that just peer out from the darkness. That it just terrorizes a person. And when you're standing in front of, I've seen the ghosts, I've seen the shadow people. And okay, imagine you got one to your left, that's a ghost. One to your right, that's a shadow person. The ghost is kind of nosy, might not be the friendliest little thing.
Right.
But the shadow being will make your soul shudder at times, where you feel threatened by them. Like they could see through and into you to a point that just is so unnerving. You feel that you are truly in danger. And it's odd to think that you can feel such a thing, but these things make sure that you get the point across that they're up to no good.
Right.
To say exactly what they are, there's lots of different levels to what they're connected to. And I connected this not as a ghost hunter. I connected this as somebody who had seen, witnessed, and experienced different alien beings. So, and then to have shadow people come forward and find they were connected that way was mind-blowing. And this is why I ran into so much static from people and trying to get the story out there and get the realization out there that they were a real phenomenon, because I connected them that way instead of, ghosts and things that go bump in the night. Now, these things do hang out in haunted places. They do. They're responsible for a lot of that. And they're responsible for a lot of things that are going on in our skies as well. The way that they're connected is what is the head scratcher, because they've got their hands interlocked into a lot of things, and it's to me, to help simplify to people when I try to describe who they are, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. I'm like, darkness is darkness. Darkness is up to no good. You don't. If it's confusing for a person to think that they have anything to do with outer space, then just think of them as this one massive movement of darkness upon your life and others' lives and their souls. And it doesn't really matter to slap a definition. Just know that they're up to no good and know how to protect yourself from them. And that's what I think is important.
Well, you know, so we got a question from, we got a group of engineering students up at the university that listen to us every Saturday night. And
Hello.
yeah. And Tracy writes in, she sent a long email and a question she had for you. She said, Heidi, compared to the common paranormal or ghosts as we know, her feeling is that they have to be somewhat powerful because they can actually project a physical presence. And we just want to know your thoughts on that. And I think they obviously must have a fairly, I mean, we you know, people go and do paranormal investigations for the most part, and I'm not a paranormal investigator, but from everything that I've heard and all the people I've interviewed is, you know, you go somewhere, you go into a home that something's going on, you get that feel, you feel like there's something happening. Maybe you'll see a little physical sign happen. Maybe you'll get an EVP, which I feel is a physical sign. But these things, obviously, if they can somewhat manifest, that's a pretty powerful object.
That's a big baddie. Wow, these things are so horrific and horrible. Now, I'll tell you, though, they come like a thief in the night for a reason. They try to hide. They try to blend. Now, they're not only seen at night. I won't say that, because the first one that I got a really good look at was broad daylight outside. So, but the interesting thing when it comes to these shadow beings, though they do get seen, they don't like it. And if they see that you see them, they will confront you. It's almost like that Men in Black thing, that interrogation, intimidation type of, I guess, approach that you could say. I'm going to say something naughty. But it's just, this is an intimidation game that they like to play. Like, don't talk, don't say anything, and it's such a bully tactic that it's so disturbing to people, who are trying to defend themselves and feel threatened for some unknown reason and spot these things, only for them to come a little bit closer to, let you know, look away, don't you say anything, because it's going to do something to you. That's the feeling that it gives you. And yeah, they are powerful, but you know what? If they could take us on fully for who we are, they wouldn't be such cowards and come as they do. Rick, give me a call. I'll meet you on the corner, and we'll duke this out or something. But no, they have to come to you when you're sleeping most of the time and try to mess with a person. I mean, that tells me that they're afraid. They are afraid. So they know that a lot of people are not used to seeing things out of their normal perception, and so they know that their appearance and what they emit can be absolutely terrifying for a person, where they don't want to discuss it. But I always give the example that if you had an enemy and you couldn't see the enemy, it'd be really difficult to defend yourself. But if you do get a good look at them, you do know that there is a threat nearby. You can protect yourself just a little bit easier than that, like a thief in the night type of approach. So they don't like it. They
Exactly.
don't like that you are able to do that, and they want to hush you up. So.
Our guest tonight is Heidi Hollis. You can check out her website at HeidiHollis.com. We're talking about shadow people, and we're going to talk about a lot more stuff. It's an honor to have her on the show here tonight. You're listening to Fringe Radio. Check us out on the World Wide Web at FringeRadioshow.com. We'll take a quick station break, and we'll be back with Heidi on the other side. Stick around. A lot more to cover. It's the Heidi Hollis Zone, our guest tonight.
I like the sound of that.
You did?
I do. Mm-hmm.
The Heidi Hollis Zone. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I don't know if you can hear my voice. I'm getting over the flu.
Oh, you sound fine. Sound fine.
Crazy.
It's been that flu thing has been going around, the whooping cough and all this other stuff. I mean, it's been bad.
Oh, man, it's really horrific. I'm a practicing therapist, and the facility I'm at is everyone's sick. My patients are sick. Everybody's sick.
Ugh.
It's horrible.
I'm an IT guy by day, and I just was working on a project here for the past 3 weeks for the Salt Lake City School Department, and we were in quite a few schools upgrading laptops and stuff. And long story short, I must have went through a gallon of that. Went through a gallon of that hand sanitizer stuff. Just watching these kids picking their nose and going in the bathroom and sicker than dogs. It's amazing. It's just crazy. Some of this stuff you would not want to gather. Okay, we were talking about the nasties here. These shadow folks. Mm-hmm. So the one of our listeners said about them being powerful. Obviously, they can manifest. Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Are they there for everybody to see, or are they there for only certain people to see?
That's a good question. I think that some people are a little bit more sensitive than the next person. But you know what? They do slip up where, many have seen them at once. So their game is not to be seen. They're truly aiming not to be seen. They don't want the recognition. They don't want people knowing that they're there. They don't want people to know that they're pulling their strings, creating havoc, creating a haunting. And something that's important to note too. And I've put this out there for years, and people are starting to find this out as well. That if you go into a haunted location, I can guarantee if you're there long enough, you will see or find that there is something like a shadow person in the center of it all. And you could see the little girl ghost to the big guy ghost. But you will find the presence of a shadow person being there at some point. But yeah, I do think that some people are more sensitive, but I think that, shadow people are equal opportunity horror, so they don't discriminate on who they'll choose to come after, whether a person realizes it or not. And, when I first started talking about these guys, I was under the impression I was the only one experiencing them. I had not heard or seen of others experiencing them. That's why I wrote the book, because I felt it needed to be put out there. And through some urging through some other channels as well, that it needed to be done. And I was a full-time student. I'm like, oh, my gosh, what the heck am I doing? But it had to be put out there. It just had to be. And so the soon as I put the word out there, I could not believe the worldwide response that has been going on till this day. And I started talking about this in 2001. And it's just not slowed down. Thousands upon thousands of reports sent my way. And I knew when I wrote this book that it wasn't just a possibility that the shadow people would approach people more and more, but that it was a threat that it would happen more and more. And it's come to such a head that I feel like, shouting it from the highest mountain, like, beware, because they are watching, they're listening, and they're so, everybody's so easily accessible, and it's not like, they're horrible people. It's just that they're going to take a peek. They're going to look your way at some point, and I just want people to be aware and beware and be prepared for that.
Well, I've never had a personal experience, but one of the people here at the radio station, their two daughters have had these shadow people in their bedrooms at night. But they didn't feel like there was anything really bad about it. It just the mom said that went in there, and the daughters were and the little kids, of course, but commenting about something on the wall. And she went in there, and the kids said, "Yeah, these things kind of came off the wall, and they were by the bed, and they appeared to be an outline of a person, and then they disappeared." And she thought, well, the kids were telling stories. And one time, one of the girls called and said, "Mom, come here, take a look." And she got in there, and she saw this shape on the wall that went up the wall, up the ceiling, and disappeared.
Yeah. Well, not everybody gets the sense of being threatened either. I mean, some people do, some people don't, but I'd say for the most part, people do get a sense of malevolence from them. And especially with one of their favorite pastime things, besides staring at people, is jumping on their chest and choking them. So
that's scary.
Always fun. And yeah, that's horrible. Horrible. Yeah.
So do you think?
One of those things.
Do you think that they're curious okay, let me back it up even further than that. Do you believe that these shadow people were humans like us at one time, passed away?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. These are along the lines of being something very demonic.
Okay.
As you could say. Yeah, not human, not from here even. So their ties to negative alien beings, the ones that abduct, is actually quite clear. And, it's funny because it's like after putting the story out about the shadow people and their relation to alien beings, that everybody, whatever, okay, aliens. Okay, we'll acknowledge the shadow people are around, but not aliens.
Right.
Now that other researchers are taking a closer look at the phenomenon, they're like, OMG, it's related to aliens. I'm like, I told you that. All the way back in '97. But it's cool to get that kind of verification and from others acknowledging that this is going on. I mean, oftentimes people see a gray and there's a shadow person next to them, or they experience grays and shadow people, alternating. It's quite bizarre.
Sky writes in out of Inception and says, Heidi, could the Hatsman / shadow people possibly be something like the Grim Reaper?
Actually, they're all buddies, Sky. They have been seen practically holding hands together. The Grim Reaper-looking guy. There's an entity out there that looks very much like a Grim Reaper. And Hatman has been seen. Actually, in my book, The Hatman, has some stories in there where this Grim Reaper-like thing is almost been sent in by the Hatman. Or they'll see a shadow person next to this Grim Reaper-looking thing. Now, the Grim Reaper story itself, where the heck did that come from? It's awfully similar to what people are reporting with, some kind of a hooded creature that's quite tall, that has bony fingers, and sometimes it's seen carrying like a sickle-like thing. I mean, it's like, is it playing to our thoughts and what we believe in, or is this a real entity? I mean, but I've had kids who have not known of such things, and they're like, I was 5, I saw it, So what are we talking about here? What is this? Something is going on. It's not anything that can be ignored any longer. There are way too many people, and I've got the stories from everywhere, from Indonesia to India, just coming in, talking about the same looking guys. And I still, almost on a weekly basis, get an email that says, OMG, I thought I was the only one. They just cannot believe this is something real that's been going on. And they just thought, I'm going to Google this, and it pops up. So, especially when it comes to the Hatman phenomenon, which is separate from the shadow people. But I'm putting my hand up as blame to confusing the two in the beginning when I was trying to figure out exactly what this Hatman was in regard to shadow people.
Okay, so we've talked about the shadow people. They're baddies. They serve no good purpose. They're not ghosts. They tend to come around, though. You said when people do paranormal stuff, we'll just call it things, when they do research, when they do EVPs, when they go somewhere, when they try to dig up something, the shadow folks sometimes appear to join the game and have some fun?
Oh, they do. They do. Not always, but yeah, they tend to keep an eye on what's going on. And if you will, they're kind of like a minion worker of sorts. Not those cute little yellow ones from Despicable Me, but real yucky things. But they're kind of like data collectors, intimidators, and infiltrators when it comes to wrecking people's lives. and having a hand in bad moods and arguments and even ill health. So if you go looking for trouble, they're just waiting for you. They're just waiting for you to poke your head in just far enough so they can reach into your ear and give you nightmares. Some people, they suddenly start feeling panicky. And they're like, I don't have panic attacks. What's going on here? And they could get a sense that something isn't right. And I tell people, go with that sense. God put that gut instinct in you for a reason. And it's for us to pay attention. If you're, like a deer that gets spooked, they just feel it. You see them, you got your gun on them or whatever. I don't hunt, but I'm from Wisconsin, but I see it all the time. I've seen it a lot, but they just get a sense like something's not right. Something's not right. It's like, and go with that. You may not always see them as easily as the next person, but, trust your gut instinct and react accordingly.
Have you? I have to be honest. I have not read your books, but I've done a lot.
I forgive you. I forgive you.
Okay, I've done a lot of digging, a lot of digging into stuff, and of course you can find so much on the internet. Do you have any actual photos? Because I've seen different people put photos out there. Probably the one that scares me the most is I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to interview Bill Bean. Bill Bean dealt with a lot of demonic entities at a young age and has some photos in his website that literally give me the creeps when I look at them. I terrify. I actually don't like looking at them. But I've seen some of these different shadow-looking people on the internet, pictures of them, and they're scary dudes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have had many photos sent to me over the years, and again, I always say, I was just on this television show called The Unexplained Files, and they're like, Heidi Hollis says no one's ever taken a photo of shadow people. I'm like, no, not what I said. I said that I cannot judge to know if it's accurate, if it's a true photo of what it is. I'm not there. And I don't have the background to say this is so or this isn't so. But have people claim to have taken photos of even the Hat Man? Many have, and I've seen many. So yeah, they're out there. Do we take everybody's word for things? I'm not a skeptic in that sense. It's like, I take people for their word, but I'm not going to sit there and tell everybody else to believe in, as I do. I take it, and it doesn't hurt me to hear their story if I can help them out. So I'm not going to sit there and judge a person as being nuts or faking a photo because that's not my purpose. But I think there's enough, they call these things paranormal shows that are out there. I think they should call them appropriately debunking shows because none of them give enough time to the person presenting the case. It's all debunking, and it's all big-headed scientists that think they have all the answers. But
you want to take a quick call before we go to news?
Oh, let's do it.
All right. Caller, good evening. Welcome to Fringe Radio.
Hey, brother.
Hey, Harv.
Yeah, I'd like to ask your guest a question.
Go ahead. We got about 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes is more than enough. Just in case that it's not spiritual, which, mathematics and spiritualism, one explains the other, really. But if these things are running around, which I've seen a few things in my life, how do we explain it to ourselves without trying to reach God? And was that replete or not?
I didn't. It's hard to hear. Did you say how do you address these things without trying to reach God? You said.
Yeah, without trying to bring Him into the.
If they're not spiritual, do you believe they're
not
spiritual?
I know what you're saying. It's honestly.
We're all spiritual.
You're seeing something from the pits of the caverns down below. Is it such a stretch to realize that there's something more powerful that's of the light? I don't think it's much of a stretch of the imagination. That
I don't think there's anything more powerful than us as individuals. But keep going. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, that's fine. No, but I mean, I'm very much of the perspective that you got to have something to throw at them besides a shoe. A little faith, a little sprinkle of light, that helps.
At who?
What's that?
Throw a shoe at who?
Anything that's dark. If you're experiencing something that's dark, like a shadow being or whatnot, but a lot of
Nothing
people.
rolls over me. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, she was saying instead of throwing a shoe, you'll use your spiritualism to fight these things off.
Exactly.
A physical thing isn't going to hurt them.
I just smack them in the mouth.
There you go.
Well, hopefully you got a little bit more behind that smack.
Harv, I gotta go to news.
Difficult.
All right, love you, man.
All right, take care.
Take care.
All right. You gotta have a little bit of spiritualism. Heidi, can we keep you for another go around?
Let's do it.
Okay, our guest tonight, Heidi Hollis. It's an honor to have her on the show.